Hello everyone, welcome. And I am super duper excited for this particular session today. I have been, putting up this, when we start putting up this panel together, it started with a very, very simple idea. We wanted to create a space for women across the AI ecosystem, sharing their raw experience, talking about leadership, technology, and innovation. Well, because we talk about AI literally every single second. We talk about technology, the models, the tools, the systems, but we don't talk actually about the real system behind it. The people who make the decision, the people who lead the team, the people who actually build which innovation moves forward. Yesterday, we celebrated International Women's Day, and it made me reflect a little deep about what this day really means. Sometimes people ask, do we even need days like this? Personally, I believe yes, we do. For me, Women's Day is not just about celebrating women one day. It is not about that one day movement. It is something that should be accelerated every single day. The recognition. Well, not because women are doing incredible things. And the one thing is we usually avoid is like the contribution. We simply think this is something very normal. This is something we expect. I have seen in my close ones women doing amazing things. For example, my own mother. She's a teacher. She teaches hundreds and hundreds of students. She manages those young minds. She also manages our home. She helps everyone in the family. And one thing literally surprises me. She never asks for recognition. She thinks this is something she should do. I have one more incredible superwoman in my house, my grandmother. Now 80-year-old, she raised two children by herself. She carried all those responsibilities, those overwhelming responsibilities. She did it with all strength, resilience. And growing up, I always think this is something extraordinary. But why no one called it leadership? Why no one called it resilience? Why no one called it innovation? They simply said that's life. And that's the truth. That's the truth about everyone in the society. Almost 70% of unpaid care work is done by women. They keep up the family together, they build the community, the functionality. But the thing is that sometimes their work is left unrecognized. And now this is why recognition matter. Not because we need validation to do something extraordinary, because history has shown that we will do amazing things, whether regardless we get recognized, we get that spotlight. But recognition is important to create that visibility because visibility creates opportunity. When women are visible as leaders, innovators, founders, decision makers, this helps our next generation to see themselves at that space. Speaking of leadership, Adriana, I loved your recent post which said, how rightly you put, like if a woman is too decisive, too opinionated, she is too manly. If she is soft, she is too women, she is too feminine. Well, I am very curious why people, put these traits like decisiveness, empathy, resilience as a male or female trait. Well, it should be human qualities. When we start assigning these basic traits, basic human traits as feminine, manly, we are unintentionally limiting where we see ourselves, where we see people in the leadership position. And today I have an incredible group of superwomen who have been shaping different part of AI ecosystem. Each speaker brings their unique journey, their unique perspective on leadership, influence, innovation in the actual real world. I'm incredibly happy to co-host this session with Adriana. Like when we first spoke, it just clicked in a moment. Yes, this is a conversation we want to bring together in the ecosystem. And I also want to mention our amazing ecosystem partner, the Mexican Embassy in Germany, for supporting these initiatives to amplifying this conversation. It is so amazing to see the institution supporting dialogues that promote inclusion, leadership, innovation across the global ecosystem. And like I have said it multiple times that I'm super excited for the session, but I will say once again, I'm super excited to have you all here. I'm super excited to hear you, learn from you, and enjoy this beautiful conversation with you amazing ladies. Adriana, now it's the stage is all yours. Please.
Thank you very much, Agrima, for such beautiful words and such a beautiful opening. I thank you a lot for creating this initiative and, of course, Open Innovator and the Mexican Embassy to put us this space because like you said, I resonate everything with what you're saying. We need more recognition. We need a platform. And we were talking with the girls behind the scenes that we need to showcase what we have actually done already to inspire other women. And I believe this is what it's supposed to be now because like you mentioned, Women's Day was yesterday. And then I wonder, is it a celebration day? Is it a day that we have to fight? What do we have to do? Or what actually we want to communicate? And if we see the numbers, there's 50% women, 50% men in the world. But in the decision making tables, powers, it is still not like that. So then the question comes, why is there a gap? Why the gap still exists? And more important, how do we close it? So I'm super excited to have these amazing leaders because they are the living proof that they can scale up the ladder, that they actually navigate this corporate complexity, this decision making, and they sat in the decision making tables. So therefore, I want to understand and help us try to interiorize these learnings of how influence is built in tech companies, how decisions are actually made in the companies. Is there a structural gap and why this structural gap exists, and what are the strategies that we can help to create to bridge that gap? And of course, for that, because we have six amazing panelists, we were talking about like having three, four, but then six amazing leaders came to share their voice. So I would like to make a different structure of the conversation in the sense that I'm just going to introduce something that I admire of each of you, ladies, of your journey, of your leadership, and introduce a question. And if you can elaborate with your perspective, with your journey, it would be amazing. So we can start taking everything, your point of view that you can give us. So without further ado, I would like to start with Yomi. Paul, you are the one that I was very curious about in your journey. You have 20 years of experience working in tech companies, from the hospitality to now the insurance industry. And a lot of your work has also been empowering women through communities. So this means that you have seen the two sides, right? You have seen how decisions are made in the companies, in large corporations, and how communities can help people to access opportunities and knowledge. So my question for you will be, in your experience working with these large enterprises, how do you see that AI is changing the decisions that are currently made right now?
Well, thank you, Adriana, for that amazing question and a slightly belated Happy International Women's Day to all the power women in the room. Um, Coming to the question that you just posted, how has decision making been changing? So I started my career 20 years ago, as you just mentioned, and in those days, decisions were more hierarchical, right? Um, Whereas today, decisions are becoming more data augmented rather than purely intuition driven. Leaders still make the final calls, but AI has turned out to be a helper in the journey, right? They can analyze a lot of data, identify patterns, generate recommendations, etc., much faster than traditional analytics teams that we had in the day. So decisions have increasingly become a combination of human judgment and AI supported insight. And not just that, AI is helping accelerate how fast we are able to make decisions. When I started, when we had to spend weeks or months collecting data, running reports, building dashboards, and building mental models, AI tools today can simulate scenarios and generate insights almost instantaneously, right? So that compresses the time between analysis, decision, and action, which has changed how organizations have operating. And finally, with the rise of AI agents and agentic workflows, it's not just humans who are making decisions. AI agents themselves are actually taking over a lot of the decision making and participating in operational scenarios. So, hierarchical decision has kind of now shifted into more distributed, data informed, and partially automated decisions.
Very interesting and insightful, this point of view, because like you mentioned, there were in the past more hierarchical decisions. And even though that you mentioned that still the heads make the decision, now they take under consideration these analytics, this outcome, the results that has been given. So in that sense, I think maybe more, because we were talking also behind the scenes, that sometimes a woman has to work as double as hard to show some results. So maybe with this shift, it can be different. I will be curious about that, honestly, like showing these results. I don't know if you have any insights from that, but otherwise, like a follow-up question, because you also work with communities, create communities to empower women. How do you see that these communities can help to boost you in the career ladder or to get leadership positions? What has been your experience in that, Yomi?
Sure. So I've been doing community work since 2018, and that's, way before the time that AI was in the picture, right? Of course, AI was there, but not at the level that it is today. So my answer would be more generic in how communities would help everybody, not just women, to grow, but especially women. What communities does is it creates access to knowledge, right? So in many organizations, not everybody has equal exposure to technologies or strategic discussions in areas that they have less exposure to or less familiarity with. So what communities do, whether they are of professional groups, learning networks, or women in tech, it helps people stay informed about what's happening, what kind of tools are emerging, how these are being applied in certain areas of the industry or in certain areas of domain knowledge. And that shared learning environment significantly accelerates someone's understanding and confidence. Secondly, communities create a psychologically safe space for women to ask questions that they are otherwise maybe not as confident to ask in male dominated environments or in areas where they are not yet that confident, right? And thirdly, what communities does is it amplifies influence through networks. Especially, it creates a kind of exposure to opportunities that women especially would otherwise would not have access to, like opportunities in emerging technologies or a leadership position in a certain team come through relationships, and we often know that. And people recommend somebody for projects or collaborations just because they know that you've been working in that area, or even speaking opportunities, right? So being part of an active community expands those networks and makes it easier for professionals to be visible and involved in such conversations that they otherwise wouldn't have even heard about. And last but not least, women communities particularly play a powerful role in representation and mentorship, right? Seeing peers and mentors who actively shape conversations like the one that we are having now helps normalize participation and leadership in those spaces. So it's a long-winded answer, but I guess you're able to understand what my experience has been with the communities.
Totally. Thank you very much, Yomi, for sharing that perspective. And on that sense, I like that you said that you need to be visible to be recommended for a project. And in that way, then I would like to jump or bring Shaima into the conversation, because I think your journey, Shaima, is extremely interesting, challenging, sometimes I will say, and I will frame why, because you started in the automotive industry, traditionally a very male dominated environment. So you have worked across data management, IT project, and leadership. You have lead these international teams, these male dominated teams. And over time also you start getting involved in mentoring women because you saw something there. So my initial question from you, from your experience, is navigating these environments that many of the people will say it's a boys' club because of the male representation. How actually did you build credibility to influence in this environment because you were most of the time the minority?
Yeah, thank you, Adriana. And happy belated to all the ladies here again for the International Women's Day. Yes, when I started actually my career in the automotive industry at Mercedes-Benz, I often found myself as the only one woman in rooms filled with engineers, IT specialists, and executive leaders as well. Automotive and the technology were, and in many ways still are, very male-dominated environment. And at the beginning, I believed to prove myself was actually giving me in a way like I have to prove myself always. But over a time, I realized really something different. So influence in technical environments is not built just through volume or loud voices. It helps me actually through three elements, which I would say creating competency, value creation, and I would say strategic relationship, especially in corporate environments. The first thing that helped me to build credibility was focusing on solving the complex solutions, like problems itself. I spent time to understand the system, like say the data architecture, the processes, or the business impact. And once people are really recognizing that you are solving a problem, especially in the male environments, they see you completely from a different perspective. So you're not longer anymore the minority voice in the room. You are then seen as someone who are really added value to them. Because in the beginning, it's always like when you enter a room, I was the one lady inside the room. So being the loudest doesn't help you. So how can you build the credibility is really through bringing the right solution so that people have you in mind, oh, Shaima is the person who can solve the problem, while the others are not going through that solution or bring you a different perspective to that. The second lesson in my field was understanding how decision actually happen inside organizations. Many people think decisions made in the meeting itself. But from my experience, and I guess most of you can confirm that itself, but in reality, the influence is often built before actually the meeting even starts. So through preparation, understanding your stakeholders, aligning the perspectives ahead of time, that was something that I learned also over the many years of the experience now, being and running now my own company as well. But that is very crucial in corporate organization, which most of female doesn't see immediately unless you are going through abroad, you have different diverse perspective, or you have a great mentor on site. And the third element, I would say, is building alliances. So because influence is not really built individually. It comes from trusted relationship across the teams, like your engineers, business leaders, or product teams, or even your customers itself, when people start to trust yourself and you understand both, let's say, the technology and the business impact itself, they start to get you more into strategic conversations. And now, just be very honest with all of us here. There were definitely moments that my voice was really had to travel a bit further to be heard. But I think women in technology recognize that experience, not only myself. When I get always through the mentorship, like Shaima, I am not seen, my voice is not get heard. So how can I do so? I say, I was like, what helps me during these 14 years being working in this environment is to shift your mindset. So from asking the spaces to be someone creating an undeniable value inside the conversation, so that there is no room to, let's say, to narrow your voice down. And these three elements was helping me myself a lot to go through this, let's say, challenging environment. And I'm not anymore proving myself, because I'm just coming and finding the space for myself, how I can be undeniable and bring the right decisions, the right solutions, so that they can hear you from this point. Because when you're inside, consciously move projects forward, the room only stopping you, actually seeing you as the woman in the room, I would say. And they're starting seeing you as the person who helps you move the work forward. And from my perspective, if I could give one piece of advice in the AI field here right now for a lot of women, we have the best moment actually to grab the chance, even if you're not an IT expert. This area is a era, I would say, where it's very regardless of the gender. So if you are eager to learn something new, then jump into this new technology and learn. I'm mentoring a lot of females, specifically in this AI field, where they say, I have no idea, I'm not a technical person. I said, doesn't matter. If you are curious and you want to learn something, there's always a way to learn. I mean, I'm from, like, back from home, I was the only one female within my 5 further siblings when we came to Germany, who had no idea what is actually technology or computer. And I started actually to study computer engineering back, now more 16 years back, more longer, because my computer didn't work. And I was like, I'm not gonna go always to Alt. Maybe Sina or Linda knows the shop where you go and they repair it. So this way I started actually my career. And I was also, when I entered 2004 with the university, we've been only 3 girls during the university time who studied computer engineering. And yes, there were guys who were saying, ha, 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 Shaima, I think she will be within 2 semesters out of this area. Yeah, but I was smiling and cheering them. I said, yeah, let them talk. But it was helping me to build the credibility, sitting and learning, even though I had no idea. And I think AI is the space right now for so many people who can shape the decisions in organizations, and helping to move forward.
Thank you very much, Shaima, for sharing all of these comprehensive ideas, journey, and everything. I have too many questions on that and remarks, but of course we have to move forward. But I do want to like highlight something that I feel it was one of the most important things. Well, everything that you said was quite interesting, but when you said that you have to make a mindset switch, and I think that's the important fact, because I mean, if you sometimes, and it's normal, humans, not women, everyone, humans can position themselves in that I cannot do that. Why they are not helping me? And if we position ourselves as the victim, as someone that needs to be helped, then we will wait for the help. But if we position ourselves like, okay, I am a survivor, I'm actually gonna find a way to encounter this challenge, then you just go around and try to find everything. So I think this switch of mindset is something that being of a group of, I don't know, 20, 30, 50 guys and being only 3 women, you had to change your mindset to stop hearing what they are saying, right? Because somehow it has to be the same for you, right? But then you were still the minority. So how you start navigating? Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I don't know if, like in one simple phrase, like through this initial starting point, how what did help you to switch the mindset and don't focus on that? Yes, I am actually one of the women here, the three, the difference, the minority. Is this correct? Is this for me? What did push you to continue and arrive to where you are?
Yeah, I think what I had there really a great mentor during my first 3 years of my career. And of course, like just giving you the background of myself, I was a very shy woman in general. I mean, I was only speak up when was needed. But I think when I went always in the room, I was more shy to speak up and to say something wrong. And the maturity comes over years when you work in an environment, you know what you're talking about. And the shift was starting when I said, nobody is going to give me the room for myself. So I have to make the space for myself in order to be visible. Because like it doesn't matter whether it's a male environment or it's a female environment. Nobody's coming in to give you the platform. Come on, Shaima, and go and grab the attention. So there I was realizing, I said, like, nobody's gonna come and help me. So I have to take my own stage. I have to find my way to speak up my voice, even though if sometimes was listening, sometimes it wasn't the right answer, maybe. But I learned through the confidence, taking the space where I had something in mind, raise your hand and just say something, because not just say something for a reason, but answer the question, because we as women are tending always to be questioning our own, I would say, intelligence in a way. And especially when you come in a room where it's very much male driven, you get somehow noise yourself. But there's the moment where you have to speak up.
Thank you very much again, Shaima, for sharing those thoughts. I would like to move on maybe with this idea in the sense of Isma, you also have experience working with different set of teams. Like Shaima said, it doesn't matter if it's a male dominated space or a women dominated space. Nobody's going to give you the platform. You have to take it for yourself. And you have work across different areas, from human resource to sales, customer success. So you have worked with corporate clients across 12 different countries. So those are 12 different cultures. And today now you're focusing on coaching and helping leaders to perform at a high level. So then my question will be oriented in this large organization. It doesn't matter if it's women or male, who makes the decision, who makes the real decision, which actually was already discussed a bit, that you had to do, let's say, your campaign or homework before, because most of the time the meeting is just to confirm that decision. But what is, in your experience, of how is the decision making process looking like?
Thank you for this question, Adriana. Well, in every company I worked with, where I was leading customer service or sales or customer success, and now I'm coaching leaders, I see it as well. There are always two decision systems. Yeah. So on paper, you have decisions are made by the upper management. So you have the C-level, the VP, it can be board members. But in reality, the decisions are made where there is risk. There is also revenue and relationships. Yeah. So the people who really shape outcome and influence are the ones who control the numbers and the story. And that may be the CEO, but it can easily be the head of sales because they own the numbers, right? So it's the revenue. It can be the customer success leader like myself who bring credible churn and also expansion data, or it can be simply a senior engineer everyone trusts more than the official owner because he knows. Yeah. So what I realize actually is formal authority is just like what your job description says, and it's just a title. But the real influence is who is the person that everybody calls after the meeting, and that they want to talk more with. So when I was managing this corporate client you are referring to across 12 countries, so things worked out really when the three alliance, I would say, or authorities were aligning, and they were basically sales, customer success, and the customer itself. And none of them had full authority. It was not the customer, it was not customer success, it was not just sales, not even the upper management by itself. It was actually together, we were kind of making the decision. And if you look at the title, you completely miss this power dynamic.
Very interesting, and I think that's deconstructing a little bit how in the surface the companies can look, that if you look at the title, you can just think like this is the person who actually makes the decision and that I have to talk. But if you, like you're mentioning, understanding how is the decision made, it's not only one person, it's not only one team, it's actually the set of teams that have to align the mindset. So then a follow-up question for you, because then if you lead these teams and you found yourself in this complex decision environment where it's not one person that I have to convince, is bringing all of them align, how did you navigate that? How actually you were able to influence or push towards a decision that you wanted, or to influence the decision?
Well, well, if I could show you, you will understand. So of course, I mean, I worked in a very male-dominated industries like printing industries and tech. And the formal authority is, as I mentioned before, is not the job description or the title. The real influence is actually the combination of trust and also the impact that other people quietly rely on. So people trust this person indirectly just because this person has the authority simply and naturally, and it's not even forcing it. And the people that influence, I think they just, it's not just that they have an opinion, they really come with the evidences or data or numbers, and they are in general, calm, and they would just say, pretty much say what others think, but don't actually want to say because they want to be polite. And what I noticed as well is I've seen many women having this kind of informal power where they would be doing the work in the background, the escalating clients, conflict, connecting department, increasing, let's see, cross-functional collaboration, coaching teams, and, for example, spotting the risk early. But what happened is I realized that this is usually labeled as soft work, and it doesn't automatically translate into a promotion or title or a salary increase or having even a additional headcount to your team, in your team, sorry. So I have been personally one of them. For example, in my former role of head of international key account management in the printing industry, I have not been chosen for the position of sales director. And I had the experience, I had the competence, I had even the influence. Everyone was sure that I would get the position. I was in the company for 8 years, and I was pretty much the Wikipedia of the whole company, including my upper management. So everybody was sure, yeah? But then choosing me would have meant stopping taking care of my 15 biggest customers, which were worth 5 million euros. So in this case, I was disqualified, not because I was incompetent, but it's because they had too much, I had too much influence over my clients. And what happened is if I would take this lead, let's say this new role, then it would have costed them money because the customers would have left. And since I built this relationship with the customers, they were tied to me like they were my children. Yeah, so this is kind of like counterproductive, because then you see, despite the influence, despite the competences and the expertise, you still don't get the outcome you expect, because there are a lot of factors around it. So as I moved closer to, let's see, profit and loss, or let's see, AI, and every transformational decision in a company, the gender mix changed completely. You know, the front line, as I mentioned before, the front line and the middle layers are mixed. Usually you have male and women equally, yeah. Except in HR, it's mainly women dominated. The meeting rooms usually where strategies and investments are decided, they are mostly male dominated. And I could see it in the industry where I worked, which are printing industry and tech. So basically, it's this soft competences and influence that you don't really, it's not really recognized, yeah, by any title or any budget or salary increase. And I think there is a gap. You mentioned earlier that there is we have a gap, and it's clearly a huge one, because women are shaping the outcome out there on daily basis, but our work is just not recognized. And sometimes is male, or let's say man, is taking the credit out of it. Yeah. So if it's your manager, then it will not give you this visibility. And well, basically we have to close this gap. And for me, it means two things. First, we need to make this influence visible and measurable. Sorry, miserable. Sorry, my French accent, I really struggle to say this word. Measurable. Anjali, correct me. If someone is the reason why a key account customer, for example, stay, that must show up in a promotion or let's say compensation, and not just a thank you, right? We women get a lot of thank yous, but when we have to talk about serious matter, we are most of the time put aside. Yeah, and I felt it myself. And so secondly, the second thing is we need to help women claim the work and the ownership, and to create basically a community, and to connect with the, let's see, women in a higher ladder. And of course, what is important as well is that we always keep in mind that we have to impact what is important. So the revenue, the risk, and also not just the problem, sorry. So as a customer success leader, I would say that the person that is closest to the customers, for example, often see the risk early. And this person is unfortunately not sitting in the decision-making circle. And that's a structural gap that we have seen, and we will unfortunately see for a while, because we need a lot of time to work on that. and we are just fresh, if I would say. So for me, the most important is to be able to be there, just like Shaima said. You have to just not claim your right to speak and to share your influence and share your expertise, but you somehow have to take it by force.
Thank you very much, Isma, for sharing these learnings and this point of view. And I think I will keep with these how to make the work visible and measurable, because you're right, we are having then the influence, but somehow maybe the work is not coming across. And therefore, I would like to bring Linda into the conversation because, well, like we were talking before behind the cameras, you also work in a, well, I will also ask that question. Is it still a heavily male dominated industry? And I will frame better why I'm asking this. I found fascinating about your journey that you mentioned you studied informatics, but then you jump into the marketing. And behind the cameras, I ask you, why? Why did you jump into the marketing? Because there was an open position, there was an opportunity. And the answer that you gave me, I loved it because you said, I'm a nerd. I'm a geek nerd in numbers. I built my own computer, but I wanted to combine the human component with the informatics, with the technology. So then this marketing journey, it opened you like this playing field, but then you move forward again to the technology field, to the data engineer, and now you work in Databricks, one of the most influential companies shaping data infrastructure today, valued at more than $1 billion. So that's why my question now is, now seen in this environment, in which maybe I have a cliche or no, is still engineering heavily male dominated? And if nowadays it's like that or not, you will tell us why did it help you to navigate these environments and build credibility to arrive where you are?
Mhm. Yeah, first of all, I'm super pleased to be in this panel with all of you amazing ladies. Like again, like I believe that we can learn from each other a lot. So it has been a pleasure listening to you as well. Yeah, I think I've shifted my focus fully towards data and AI. And I'm now leading a pre-sales solution architect team across Central and Southern Europe, and have previously held leadership roles at other corporates like Teradata or Salesforce. But I've also seen the other side, like starting in an agency, for example, that was very small. So I've tried again, like to see different types of organizations. And I think to your question, whether engineering teams or data teams are still heavily male dominated, I'd say yes. And the funny thing is, I personally, at the beginning of my journey, didn't even notice that because I was so fascinated by technology. And I always had this domain interest, maybe because my father was also working in IT. But I didn't reflect at that point in time about being the only woman in the room or the ratio of men versus women. It only appeared to me over time that I was one of the very few that has a different gender. That's where I started to reflect about it as well and what an impact it has on myself personally. And I think we are in a time now where we're observing a change. So the ratio is improving. Like also when I look at our organization, our teams across the globe, we're seeing more and more women entering this space. And you can also, look at the numbers when you look at the STEM fields, the ladies that are starting to study natural sciences, informatics, technology, mathematics, it's growing. So we have risen to 36% of new students that are female nowadays, which is a great win and achievement in my point of view. But I think it also comes back to points that Shaima has been mentioning already, and Isma as well, around being the owner of your life and your career. And I personally have always been driven by curiosity. So I was always looking to fulfill the needs and the desire to know something and understand something better. And I took, the different choices that I needed to do in my life to fulfill my curiosity. And this led me actually to the career that I am having now. But again, like I think an important aspect here as well is that you don't always need a formal authority to do something. You are the owner of yourself and the owner of your own luck. So, try to invest, try to build the competency up, try to be present, try to be open, try to be curious, try to learn, and then it will bring you a long way already. So I think I've covered a few aspects in there. So first of all, again, like, yes, we're still seeing lots of men, but we're also seeing more and more women. And that makes me truly happy.
Amazing. And I would like to actually tap into something that I believe is extremely important that you mentioned, that you had a role model, which in this case was your father, who inspired you to study that. But for you, there was no gender difference because you were just there like a normal kid going into this playground. And then that's why in the beginning, sometimes I was thinking, why we need a Women's Day if we are the same capable? And unfortunately, then I saw that because society or in this structure, women had more role models as we had to be the princess. We had to be or that's how women were portrayed. However, if you take that away out of the conversation and then you can just inspire them to let them be whatever they want, however they want, whenever they want, then the result is you. Then the results are women that can do everything, can just go and just conquer any role. And of course, I will say consciousness of this gap, it is important, but not as, again, I mentioned that position ourselves as the victim, but as now being the role models, how we can, and that's a follow-up question for you, Linda, how would you advise women or in general people that we can start bridging this gap and just help women advance into this field, since it is not only possible but it also brings more benefits due to diversity?
Yeah. So I think, and I'm saying like that, I think my father was kind of the starting point, to trigger the curiosity in this space. But I also had a very strong female leader in my career who kind of became my mentor and opened up a whole new perspective and a whole new world. So I think even though we can look at different role models, I also believe like in some cases it might be easier or it's nicer to have like common topics you can talk about, for example, next to work, similar experiences that you have, made because of gender, for example. So I think this is still an accelerator and still very much, needed, but it shouldn't be the only one, right? Because again, like the stereotypes that you were describing is something that I usually try not to think in, because again, like we have such a diversified world with different cultures, different languages and everything. So why should we box ourselves into something? And I believe this is also a little bit tied to, some of the work I've been doing throughout my studies around communication theory and how we look at things and all of that. So there's I think a broader topic behind that. But again, like going back to like the core pillars, I would say start with your passion, start with your desire, and then you will slowly build up, your circles of influence or your circles of experience, and then you benefit from the people that you met within these circles. They can refer you to a different position or a different person even. So there are so many opportunities, but first of all, just start. And I think especially in the age of AI, we have lots of bigger, training possibilities nowadays. Like if you look at the free learning offering that is out there on YouTube, that is offered by Google, Amazon, whatnot, like everyone enables you basically to upskill yourself. So just start, to go on this journey and benefit from there. And I think what we shouldn't forget is that technology is only an enabler, but we still rely on people and need the people around us to do something great. So the supporting network, these mentors, this coaching that you can receive is absolutely vital and really critical to evolve also as a person and grow. And again, it's just something that allows you to develop in the space that you want to. Yeah.
Well, you all girls are inspiring me a lot, and I think from this, I believe that curiosity can be just your mode to just try to discover with this mindset. And in that perspective, I would like to bring Angeli into the conversation, since I believe, Angeli, you're one of the also more or very curious here, since you have worked across Fortune 500 companies from USA, Asia, Europe, and basically now you're missing maybe Africa, or maybe you have. So today, that you are actively using your voice to speak about leadership, to speak about influence, and to speak about how to navigate these structures or corporate structures from your perspective. How can we make women, or how can someone be helped to sit in the decision table and just make a position there and be heard?
I think that's the $1,000,000 question for sure. And nice to be here. So, hi, ladies, and also everyone who's listening. One of the things that I've seen, I've been a multiple time C-level leader and I've gone up through the ranks. And when I mentor other women specifically, the number one question they get asked is, I saw that the man got promoted and I didn't, and I did twice as much work, or whatever the situation is. One of the things interesting as women, and this happened to me too, at the earlier stages of my career, is I thought if I just worked so much harder and took on so many more responsibilities, that the promotion would literally fall from the sky, or somebody in the executive team would automatically, see the value, and then the promotion would then be bestowed upon you. Unfortunately, so for I think all of us on the panel, we know what the truth is, but for the listeners out there, that is not how it works, especially in higher levels of leadership. So how do you get to the decision table? You have to demand it. You have to be very clear, number one, that you want it. And this is the one thing I find in the difference between women and men. A lot of times, women in groups, we talk about how we want it, but then when we go to the actual leadership, we need to tell them, make a plan for it, and demand it. And I would also say one of the mistakes I did in my career was constantly taking on extra responsibilities. And it's a little counterintuitive because we think that if you do everything, then you're there in line for their promotion. Sometimes what happens to women is there's a paradox, and I think there's a term for it. You do everything to the point where they don't want you out of that role because you're going to need 4 to 5 people to do it, right? They take you out of that role. So it's really important for visibility to make sure you can get promoted, demand the promotion. Think of your male counterparts. Would they take on 3 extra jobs without the pay? Would they take on 3 extra jobs without the title? So if they're not going to do it, neither should you.
I think that was a very bullet, straight to the target answer. I love that. And then I think, or I'm reflecting of what you're saying, that we sometimes believe that by just doing the work and working as hard and sweating for it, like you said, the promotion will fall for the sky, but maybe that's actually the flaw in the sense that we are not speaking out for that. We are not taking what Isma said, the numbers, the credibility, the visibility, the ownership of that work, and also what Linda was mentioning. We have to take the ownership of our life, the ownership of, and all of them, I think, mentioning the responsibility of, I want this, so I will take it. So if I want that promotion, literally asking to the people involved, what do I need to do for you to consider me to be the next person you promote? So then making them accountable of, like, you're saying this perfect, don't worry, I will fulfill this. Because otherwise taking free work, it only drains and then it decreases the visibility. So then, Angeli, a follow-up question on that. How much do these internal relationships and networks matter, and how do you build them to spot the right decision maker who will help you to sit then in the decision table?
The internal networks and also your external networks are everything. And when you get into higher levels of leadership, it really becomes about soft influence, soft skills, soft power. People who are in IC roles, so individual contributor roles, it's really about your technical mastery, your functional mastery. But the moment you're stepping into higher levels of management, it becomes about how do you influence around you. To get into either higher level roles or to get the promotion you want, it is, I would say, 80% soft power, soft influence, soft skills. And I say the word soft because it's important to highlight that these skills are just as important as what the traditional hard skills are, right? What you're actually doing in your function. There was a study that they did in the military and they applied it to business. So think of like top military teams, they actually prioritize trust more than they prioritize the actual functional skill because you can teach the skill, right? So it's the same thing in teams. And especially the higher up the ladder you go, it becomes more about trust, team dynamics. And this is what people are forgetting, and it's what women are forgetting. So these types of internal and external networks is absolutely everything.
Amazing. So I think ladies here hearing we have to work harder in our team dynamics, in our external network, external and internal network influence, because this is how power moves. So we have to understand now these systems. And well, I want to move on with Sina because Sina, you have lived through many of these different shaped systems, which this is quite interesting. Then following up on this topic, because you started from the corporates in the semiconductor area, and then you start moving in the different type of companies or structure of companies, from a corporate to an SMB, then to a researcher, and then now to an entrepreneurship. So you have seen the different ecosystems. So then my question relating to this topic that we recently were highlighting, do you actually see the same opportunity for women building influence across these different type of organizations, or you will see that there is one bigger opportunity or easier opportunity or different opportunity in these different company structures or from entrepreneurship to large corporations?
Yeah, hello everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to also share my thoughts and experience with all of you. And yeah, it's such a pleasure to meet you and listening to all of you. It's very, very inspiring. And yeah, so in the beginning, you asked me how to build influence inside like large companies or startups, or where's the difference? And I honestly think that's quite a big question to shape into a short answer looking at the time now. So I would like to take the perspective of what I would share with my 5-year-old me in order to answer that question. And here's what I would say. I would say, number one, build your support system wisely. And I would start with that, because prepare for the worst. That's what I would tell my little me. Learn to read the room and trust your instincts. That leads me to number two, learn empathy, especially as my 5-year-old me. I wasn't born with empathy. Empathy is something I grew over time. And especially in the boomer generation, we see a major lack. There are studies at the University of Miami right now. A friend of mine is writing his book about empathy in political systems. So learn empathy, be able to see the perspective of someone else, and understand their intentions, and not just of your friends, also of your enemies, and see their strengths and learn from their strengths. Don't judge them. And number three, I would say build connections, and we have all said the same thing. It's network, it's connections. And I noticed in building connections, we often connect over similarities. But I would rather tell my 5-year-old me also connect over the differences, because the difference is what makes you trigger. And then it's up to our behavior, how we act onto those triggers. And I would say always stay kind, because I cannot control anyone else but my own emotions. And that's sometimes the toughest. And then it has a lot to do with understanding myself, my own needs. And in order to build influence, this is essential to know, to create boundaries. And when we talk about building influence, it's about building boundaries. And we heard Angela saying, would you take on to the third job? No, this is a boundary or a line we are drawing. So I would say applying these 3 principles of the support system means whatever happens, whoever's stabbing your back, if you fall down triggered by someone else or triggered by yourself, you have your support system to survive everything. Then empathy, that helps in dealing with the hard times. Also forgive others, forgive yourself, because yeah, it's a key enabler. And then the connections, it's crucial. And I wouldn't, to come back to the question, if you have a bigger influence in larger companies or in startup ecosystems, it always depends on the bubble. And there are a lot of large corporates where you have 50-50 diversity rates, and they don't have the issues of women are not empowered enough. Sometimes men even fear the women in those larger enterprises. It always depends on the bubble. Also here in the Berlin ecosystem, you have 50% of female founders over the last 2 years. It's growing. So I would say we can achieve everything. Everything is possible. But in order to answer the question of building influence, I think the most sustainable way of building influence is through trust. And this is what most of you also said, and friendship.
Amazing. I think I couldn't have expressed or elaborate that better, in the sense of, I love what you said, that you have to build the boundaries to yourself. Because once you respect your boundaries, and not like, yeah, I can take that extra job or extra task because that's what I believe that it will make me the promotions. But then how many extra tasks will you take? How many times will you bite your tongue before you actually setting your boundary and saying what you want, what you need for what you want to achieve? So I love these golden rules that you share. Somebody in the chat also, the chat has been bombarded with amazing thoughts, and honestly we just started the conversation and the time is already over. So unfortunately we could not dive into the other amazing questions. However, Sina, I would like to follow up on one simple question before wrapping up on this, because I very much like what you input. So building your ecosystem is everything, and I agree on that. If you are surrounded by successful people that you can take role from that, that actually will open your eyes and show you what's possible. So in that sense, and having this experience from the corporates to the startups and everywhere, how would you say that you can create your ecosystem inside of these different bubbles, or is there a common denominators across these different bubbles to create this ecosystem that will help you as a jumping up forward?
Yeah, basically that's what we did 3 years ago. We started building a community called Founders and Friends Berlin Meetup. And it's a meetup where we have persistency and accountability. It means we meet each other every last Wednesday of a month from February till November, and you have the chance to connect. And it's not only women or only men or only a certain industry. It opens the doors for everyone who has an, I would say, entrepreneurial heart. And this is also how I met Anjali, and she's become a frequent speaker, and she introduced me to Women of SaaS. And she said, Sina, you also need to enlarge your network. And yeah, It's exactly what you mentioned. If you don't feel you fit into a certain ecosystem, you just start your own ecosystem by setting up a structure that is inviting to people, and then you create the culture and environment where you can strive. And everyone who feels welcome will come automatically. And everyone who feels threatened or triggered, they cause drama. And then and you can pull back your energy from the drama. That's again the building the connections with boundaries.
Thank you very much, Sina. I think unfortunately we have to close the panel, but I wouldn't have been able to close it better. One take for everyone who joined us today is start building your support ecosystem. Join all of these amazing leaders. They're really open there to help you, to share their knowledge. That's why we are here. So connect with all of them, with all of us, and let's start building or inspiring the next women leaders, because my beautiful panelists or my amazing panelists, they are the living proof that we can go higher, and the limit is the moon. So thank you very much to everyone that joined and that share everything. Agrima, well, respect to the audience and everyone. We have to close this, so I give you the microphone. Thank you, girls. I think we need a follow panel for all the hundreds of questions we created.
Yes, we definitely do. Definitely. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. It was such great, insightful to hear you all. Thank you, Adriana, for co-hosting this, and all the amazing, audience. We will definitely do a part two. So please stay tuned and let's reconnect and catch up soon. Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye bye.
Thank you,
Bye bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Looking
Thank you.
forward.
Bye bye.